I'm the Executive Secretary of GFRAS, and I would like to welcome you all to the third webinar on mental health in agriculture. I apologize for everybody from North America and Caribbean and Latin America that you have changed time zone. So many of you had come in a bit early, thinking that we started an hour ago. So apologies for that. Europe and America is not synchronized very well in changing time zones. So apologies for that. We have had two interesting seminars. This is the third seminar in the series that we are running. And in the two first seminars we had presenters from the University of Florida, Dr. Heidi Radonovich and Teresa Younger, who at the first one was sort of telling what is the issues of mental health, what is mental health problems and issues in the first one, and in the second one more, what can you do at an individual plan and what can you do at a more sort of institutional plan. And today we have 4 presenters coming in and they will talk about experience from around the world. So we have presenters from Europe, from Africa, from the Americans and from Asia. And I would like to just briefly present the 4 presenters before I will give the floor to the first presenter. So the first presenter we have is from Europe. Her name is Birgit Bratengeyer. She is an Austrian working for the Austrian Chamber of Agriculture. And she works within Adult Education Institute. And she is from a farming background herself, and she holds a master degree in adult education management. Welcome very much, Birgit, to this webinar. The second one is from India. It's Dr. Paramasivan. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing it correctly, sir. Dr. Paramasivan Sethuraman Sivakumar. And he is working as principal scientist at the Indian Council for Agricultural Research. And he has done work on stress psychology in the Department of Psychology at the Florida State University as a Fulbright scholar. And he is working on evaluation on consumer behavior and have done quite a lot of publishing in this. The third one is from South Africa. It is Miss Siyani Marima. Welcome also to you. And she is from North and South Africa, and she has many traits. She's a professional nurse, a scholar in Hebrew, a farmer, a director, an author, a spokeswoman for women's rights, a community facilitator, and many more things. She is working as a senior lecturer at Tumbi Seleka College of Agriculture and holds various senior positions within the government of South Africa, as well as within the NGO sector. The last speaker of today will be Dr. Tessa from the Caribbean. She is a specialist in agriculture extension and rural development. She works part-time with the Faculty of Food and Agriculture at the University of West Indies, where she's lecturing the field of agriculture extension. She's also involved in collaboration with the University of Liverpool in England and have done consultancies for many of the international organizations. She is a very engaged and passionate member of the Caribbean Agriculture Extension Providers Network called CAEPNet, and also the Global Forum for Rural Advisory Service. So without further ado, I would like to invite the third speaker, Birgit, to present, and welcome you all once more. If you have some questions, please put them in the Q&A. And I also encourage all of you to put your name and who you are and where you are from in the chat, so you can see who are present today from around the world. Looking very much forward to your presentation, Birgit. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl, for introducing me so nicely and giving me the opportunity to introduce Austria and the project Life Quality for Farmers. Let me try to share my screen so you can see my presentation. So, is this working? Can you see something?
Yes, you need to put it in full view mode.
Okay. Okay. What's about now?
Still not in full view mode.
Okay.
Sorry.
Is it now the full screen?
Perfect. Yes, thank you.
Yes?
Perfect.
Okay, super. So let's start. Okay.
Apology, Birgit, but
Yes.
it jumped out again.
Sorry. Let's try it again. Can you see now the full screen?
It's
or
not
do
full
I have
screen.
to
It's
not
share.
full
It's
screen?
double
Okay.
screen. Yeah, yeah, like you did last. Exactly. Apologies, everybody. We have a bit of a technical problem here.
I'm very sorry about that.
Kein Problem.
I'm working here with two screens and my laptop, and I never exactly know what you can see, but I'm sure we can manage. Okay.
Yeah, now it looks good. Try to keep it there.
Okay. So, yes. So to the audience, good morning and good afternoon, depending where you are right now. Great to have you all here. If you want to learn more about the Adult Education Institute, it's called Ländliches Fortbildungsinstitut. Check out our webpage. It's www.lfi.at. For the next 15 minutes, I want to give you an overview about facts about Austria, facts about agriculture in Austria, health data in Austria, and the mental health project for farmers in Austria. Let's see where Austria is located. This is the map of Europe, and right here is Austria. Oops. This is the topographic map of Austria. You can see the east of the land is flat and suitable for farming crops. The pre-alpine area changes to the high alpine area right here. And there is mainly pastures with cows for dairy products. By the way, the Austrian mountains are called Alps. I have a few facts for you about Austria. So the size of Austria is about 84,000 square meters. This is about 32,000 square miles. The population in Austria, almost 9 million people, and our official language is German. This is where my funny accent comes from. The Republic of Austria is a semi-presidential presidential parliamentary democracy, elections in Austria are largely based on proportional representation, which means that parties usually have to form coalitions. Currently, Austria is governed by the Austrian People's Party. This means the ÖVP and the Green Party. Austria is part of the European Union and a safe country to live. We have a homicide rate of 0.7, and I think this is quite low. Between all this data, I show you a nice picture. This is real. You can see in the background a farmhouse and a backyard and the mountains. Austria does not look like this everywhere. Facts about agriculture in Austria. The agricultural areas are divided into crops, permanent grassland, and area used for forestry. 3/4 of Austria counts to the Alps as less favored area. The number of farms are 162,018, and the number of organic farms are 22.2%. But is quite a lot. And we Austrians are quite proud of the high quality of food we produce. The size of an average farm is approximately 20 hectares, or around 49-acre agriculture area, and 18 hectare. That's around 44.5 acre forestry area. Oops. On the next slide, I have something about the health data from Austria. In Austria, we have a social plan for every working person, but also unemployed person living in Austria. So basically everyone is insured, and included are accidents, health, maternity leave, unemployment, and pension. With the deductibles, there are some treatments are with deductibles. Also, medicine is with deductibles. For example, dentists, and unfortunately, psychotherapy are with deductibles, and only limited slots are available, especially for psychiatrists and mental health care centers for children and youth are available. The social security contributions and taxes are quite high. They are actually between 20 and 55%, depending on the salary. As Heidi Radunovic already mentioned, healthcare is guaranteed throughout Austria in our case, and the acceptance of mental illness in the population is divided between either traditionally minded people in the countryside, it's more a stigma, or the modern younger people in the city. They have more an open approach and no stigmatization anymore. The next picture shows you a family harvesting pumpkins. This picture is taken in Lower Austria, and as you can see, there are no mountains there. Suicides in Austria. The annual cause of death by suicide 2020 are 1,209 persons. Population-based standardizations suicide rate of 14.3 per 100,000 inhabitants. I have this graphic for you. Since the 1980s, the suicide has been falling steadily. Here are the age cohorts broken down by colors. The blue line are people plus 75 years. More than 3/4 of suicide deaths are men. Suicide rates evaluated by occupational group unfortunately does not exist. So I can therefore not say whether farmers commit suicide more often than people from other occupational groups. Now let's continue with the project, mental health project for farmers in Austria. This is our logo. So what we offer in the project are psychosocial consulting, telephone consulting, seminars as prevention and marketing activities. Let's start with the psychosocial consulting. Well, I think it's similar to the mental health care, what Heidi and Therese already mentioned last weekend. Counselors advise people in different life situations. In almost every county, there is a psychosocial counselor employed by the Chamber of Agriculture. Some services of the counselors are for free and some are chargeable. Our program do not include psychotherapy. Psychotherapists treats mental ill people, so we don't offer this service. A diagnosis can be made by a psychiatrist or a psychologist. Psychopharma may only prescribe by a psychiatrist. Sometimes also the family doctor can describe psychopharmas, and we are not very happy about that. The next one I want to tell you about is the telephone consulting. So telephone consulting is a simple and anonymous first point of contact for small and large problems. Professional psychosocial counselors listen and give answers, for example, in case of conflicts between young and old, or like bequeathing and inheriting a farm, economic worries, partnership conflicts, work overload. All the psychosocial counselors are either grown up on a farm or actually live on a farm. This share pic you can see right now, I translated for here. This is a phrase and it means something like, we always listen to you. This is part of our Facebook channel. You can find the project on Facebook with the title LQB, Lebensqualität Bauernhof. And with the next few slides, I show you more of these share pics. The next thing I want to tell you is the lecture series. It's called Balance Between Farm and Love. The lecture has been developed to encourage, in a humorous and interactive way, to rethink traditional approaches, from communication strategies between young and old and the changing role image of women in society, simply to learn about new ways of doing things. So, and this share pic says the process of handing over is too much. It is not always easy. We had 140 events last year. Oops. The next one is the seminar series for working circles. It's called "And Where is the Life Quality of Life?" This one-day seminar reaches men in working circles with the topic of quality of life. We deal with questions like how to work scope and relationships affect quality of life. And we address questions about quality of life despite increasing stress, or quality of life in a multi-generational model, or quality of life after farm retiring. And this share pic says economically successful, economic does not grow by itself. 7,885 persons took part of an LQP event last year. So the working series with the title "How do I use my resources?" like cultivating your resources to overcome difficulties, is a workshop. With this workshop, we want to encourage the participants to learn how to consciously release inner resources in order to better deal with later challenging situations. We developed this program with a team of psychosocial consultant from France, Belgium, and Germany due to Erasmus Plus project called Agri Resources. The results of this project are freely available and you can download them here. Agri Resources, RSE it's called. And we have an article series and the social media presence. So yes, a big part of our work is to make known our services. The project exists already 10 years, but still not every farmer in Austria knows about us. We produce monthly articles and they get published in different agriculture newsletters and magazines. And the Sherbikas have a nice sentence. It's translated like, love is not what you expect to get, but it is what you are willing to give. If you want to find out more about us, check out our website. It's called Lebensqualität and this says, together we are stronger. Actually, right now I'm preparing an annual report for 2020. It's not ready yet, but the report of 2019 can be downloaded from our website in the download section. This is right here. And well, I hope I was able to provide you with interesting information, and thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Birgit. I have two questions for you right now. I don't see anyone in the Q&A. So one question is, if I visit your website, is it only in German or also in English or other languages?
No, it's only in German.
Okay.
The website from Agri Resources. I think this one must be also written in English. Okay. Agri Resources.
Okay, thank you. And I think you say it's a 10-year-old project, but I'm not sure who is funding this project. Is it the government or is it the farmers' organizations, or who are funding you?
It's actually a European. We work actually with European Union money. We got a grant from the EU. Mm-hmm.
And what happens when that grant expires? Will the government take over? Have you proven that you have an impact?
We are not sure if that case really happens. I really can't say. Well, I really hope that we could continue even without EU money, but this is not 100% sure.
Okay, but have you statistics? You said that, sorry for probing a little bit here, but you said that you didn't, at the suicide data, it's not aggregated on what kind of work. So have you seen an impact on the number of people using you increasing over time, or that you know, I mean, if you need to tell somebody that this is actually working, do you have the statistics to prove that it has been a successful thing?
We don't need to take this statistic to prove that we're successful. Let me think about our well, we reach our goals by proving that people are visiting the consultor, and also calling us by phone, and also taking part at different workshops or seminars. This is the kind of proof we have to hand over to the grant giver.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you very much for your presentation. And maybe more question comes up in the end when everybody have presented. Thank you very much, Birgit. I'll now turn over to Dr. Paramasivan Sethuraman, and I am sure that you cannot give us an exact figure of the number of farmers in India. I was very impressed. They knew it down to one single farmer in Austria. I'm sure you can't do that. Please, sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lassen. So, I think
yes, we see your screen. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So, good morning to all. I'm presenting the topic on farmers' mental health in India, current status and field intervention. Actually, my presentation, I will be focusing more on a scientific approach for dealing with the mental health issues in India. It's a compilation of several kind of field interventions undertaken by the different agencies. And my association with the farmers' mental health in India is, it starts from my postdoc work, where I did work on stress psychology in the experimental psychology, and the later stages I worked on a short, we made a project on farmers' mental health issue, and then later it was published as a blog in the AESA that I'll be telling you a little later. And to talk about my work, like my place, I am from down south. It's in the, I am representing Indian Council of, I'm working in Indian Council of Agricultural Research. There is a research institution down south. It's a Central Tuber Crops Research Institute. I live and work here, but my work is mostly focusing on the northeastern region of India, where we are working on like a technological intervention for reducing the vulnerability of the mostly the indigenous people. For the almost last 10 years, I am working with the various kinds of indigenous and tribal people in the northeastern states. Almost like 6 states we are working there. The photo which you see here, this man, he is from Konyak tribes in interior region of the Nagaland state. Basically, like traditionally they are headhunters, and in the later stages after the independence of India, they came to the mainstream, and now they are coming into the cultural stream. And we had a project along with them. We try to influence their vulnerabilities, reducing their vulnerability by introducing, creating new kind of economic activities. So like that, I used to work with almost like 15 tribes in different regions of the northeastern region. So this is my current work experience in dealing with the vulnerabilities of the tribal population in India, which I'm not going to explain what I am doing there. I'm going to talk about the mental health scenario in India. So at present, now I am representing agricultural extension in South Asia, which is a professional network headquartered in CRISP in Hyderabad. It's a network having more than 2,000 members, 20,000 members in different Facebook groups, and it is one of the very active professional extension group in India, which is having a membership from diverse group like scientists, students, then field level extension professionals, NGOs, private agencies, and voluntary organizations. And we are working on different core programs like knowledge management. We produce a lot of blogs in AESA, and as well as different capacity building programs. And there is another program which I am also taking a major part, is strengthening agricultural extension research. I, along with Dr. Rashid, and we produced 2 manuals on extension research methodology, and we have written so many blogs on improving the quality of the extension social science research in India. And we are also part of modifying the curriculum at the national level. And AESA is also influencing the policy, and it has a very strong network. And if somebody wants to know more about what AESA is about, you can just check the portal as well as the address. You can contact there, and then you will get very good information. It's a very good, very comprehensive site in this part of the world. Okay, now I am coming directly to my point. Before going into the farmers' health issue, let me have a look at, because India has one of the largest agricultural system in the world, and preferably second largest extension system in India in the world, and which has more than 8,000-9,000 professional extension workers in different regions of India. And if you have a look at the total number of extension people who are helping the farmers, it will be more than 50 to 20,000 rupees. Sorry, 20,000 numbers all over India. And being one of the largest systems in the world, it has a very strong agricultural background. Though the contribution of agricultural to the GDP is about 20% now, which is highest in the last 20 years. In 2020, the contribution of GDP to Indian agriculture is about 20%. So, and then India is the largest producer of spices, pulses, milk, tea, cashew, and jute, and it is the largest livestock population in the world, about 51%, and one of the largest manufacturers of farm equipment. And over 60% of the rural population in India is depending upon the agriculture. And if you look at the other side of the agriculture, if you look at the data, the average age of the Indian farmer is about 50.1%. It's not a good sign at all. Youth are not coming, they are not coming to agriculture, or they don't want to continue agriculture as a profession. If you look at there is a survey conducted about a few years ago by an NGO, only 1.2 youth, they are interested to come to agriculture. But now the trend is changing because of the emergence of the agricultural startups in the recent years. And a lot of money is available, private investment is available for agricultural startups. So the youth and other people who are non-agricultural people, they are also venturing into agriculture. The second scenario is the average land holding size is reducing. It is about 1.1 hectare now. And the income from farming, if you look at the agricultural household income, the income which is coming from their own crop is about 35%. It is reducing because the rest of the income is coming from livestock, rest of the income is coming from the labor work which they are doing in other farmers' field. So, but gradually the income from the crop is reducing in the farm household level. And the other one is smallholder access to the credit is only about 40%, and it is much lesser when compared to when we say that it is a smallholder agriculture, and credit access is only about 40%, is because indebtedness is one of the major criteria, one of the major reason for which farmer suicide in India. And the other one is the number of farmers quitting agriculture is about 5,000 per day. This is also another worrisome scenario, but at the same time, we are also getting some new entrants from the youth who are well-educated youth who understand the value of the agriculture, especially the business component of the agriculture. Nowadays, it starts increasing. So then when you look at the agriculture as a profession, because in first 2 webinars, there's a lot of things said about this. And there are 3 major groups. You can see there is a multiple uncertainties, diverse working conditions, and multiple work roles. These are the 3 different factors which are creating a kind of stress in agriculture. One is climate, unstable market conditions, and changing the consumer demands. You can see if you look at the Indian consumer demand, the staple food consumption, like consumption of the food grains in the last 10 years is reduced by 33%. And the consumption of the meat, consumption of the egg, which is increased by 25%. and the consumption of the high value products like vegetables and fruits increased by 33%. So that means that there is a change in the consumer preference because farmer is depending upon the consumer, and there is a fluctuating interest rate in the credit given for the agriculture. And if you look at the second one is a long working hours and physically demanding environment, because India has more than 12 agricultural ecosystems. We have 12 diverse kind of ecosystems from cold regions to the completely warm region in the south. And this kind of environment is creating a kind of stress for the farmers. And again, there is a lot of pesticide consumption and fertilizer consumption in India. And again, heavy farm machineries. Nowadays, the trend is going for miniaturization and customization of the farm machinery, especially with the emergence of the startups. The farm machinery size is reduced and utility is becoming increasing. And the farming is considered as a service, which is again a big threat for the public sector extension system. And another one is the multiple workloads. The farmer is not only a farmer, he is a family man, and he is a part of a social group, and he is a part of a community. A farmer has to take up the multiple roles. So this is all. So these are the different reasons why Indian agriculture, in a very typical way, is becoming a very stressful occupation. And there was a recently review conducted, and this data is not specific to India, but the worldwide. So what makes the farmers vulnerable? What are all the major mental health risk factors? And the pesticide exposure, especially in the developed countries and the developing countries, though it is less in case of developing countries, but it is the highest among all. And the finances, input prices, incomes, profit, and market conditions. It's a second one, second chief reason for mental health risk factor. And the weather uncertainty and the poor physical health and the past injury and the farming in general, heavy workload, stress, hazards in the farming. These are the different mental risk factors identified through a systematic review done by IASB. It is a recent publication published in the International Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health in 2019. And the Indian studies, as well as some of the international studies, the prevalence, the common health outcomes. So we are talking about the farmers' mental health issues. Stress is the prominent health outcome identified, and suicide is second one, and depression is the third one. And most of the times we look at the only suicide. Suicide is a very catchy word, so everybody talks about it. But unfortunately, we have a very less focus, especially in India, on the stress and the depression. Only in the recent years, there is a change. I will be explaining the different kind of programs which are initiated by the different governments. So they are actually mapping the mental health status of the farmers and trying to diagnose the people who are in the vulnerable stage, and then they are trying to link it with the counselors. And the other one, and the research conducted in one of the hotspots, mental stress hotspots in India, Vidarbha region of the Maharashtra. So I am talking about not about the suicide, I am talking about the general farmers population. There is a prevalence of somatic symptoms about 34.7%. Anxiety is about 55%. It is conducted in the farmers, and the clinical depression is 24.7%. That means that a substantial number, more than we can say 30% of the farmer are in vulnerable stage. At least 55% are needs attention because they are clinically diagnosed with anxiety and depression. And if you look at the another study, another systematic review by Marriott, the reasons, what are the exact reasons for which it triggers the suicide, and increased use of cash crops, like especially the transgenic crops, which fits a good higher income than the normal crops, and as well as the increased use of non-institutional credit resources like the money lenders. So that is an informal way of taking the credit in a very flexible way. So that is also creating one of the reasons for the farmer suicides in India. And this is the latest data which is available in government. In 2019, only one thing is there is a marginal decrease in the number of suicides of the farmer suicide from 2018 to 2019, about 3%. And the states which are having reported the highest level of suicides in India is Maharashtra, Karnataka, and Andhra Pradesh, which are agriculturally advanced states, we can say. And even Maharashtra, the farmers are more of an enterprising farmers, because we have conducted a survey in Maharashtra farmers, and we have done the enterprising tendency of the farmers. The Maharashtra's enterprising tendency of the farmers in Maharashtra is higher than the other states. But unfortunately, they are shifting more towards the cash-oriented crop. And again, the region, because it's Vidarbha region is not a fertile region, and it is affected by the so many erratic weather condition. That is also another reason why farmers are going for a high level of stress and then going for suicide. And in a few years back, we tried to work on a model by compiling the different studies conducted in India and as well as other countries, to see that whether the farmers' suicide or the effects of the stress, the outcome, I mean to say that the outcome of the stress can be predicted. Though we have not yet operationalized the model because it was designed for a particular project. So what we did, because it was developed with the help of a psychiatrist, and then we identified that some of the predisposing factors, which are stress-inducing factors, like there are several factors. I'm not going to read anything. Anyway, I will be sharing the presentation. So the predisposing factors are making the people vulnerable, provided when they are coming under the psychological stress, which is actually exceeding the coping ability of the people. And then the vulnerability leads to the when it is affected by the precipitating factors like sudden crop failures. And because most of the reviews, when we try to do it in the because it was a part of a review, so most of the time we say that the precipitating factors are responsible for the suicide, but technically speaking, the predisposing factors are the main reasons, as well as the failure of the protective factors. And then facilitating factors, they are triggering the farmer suicide rather than looking more focus on the precipitating factors. And now let me come to different initiatives which are try to in India and try to address the mental health issues. One is from my organization, like in our headquarters. They have a project called NASF, National Fund for Basic and Strategic Research. Sorry. So this is a multi-crore project which was given to Punjab Agriculture University, and they devised this for mapping the mental health status of the farmers in 3 states, Punjab, Maharashtra, and Telangana states. Among them, like Maharashtra and Telangana are still in the top 2 in case of the farmer suicides. Under this project, they created a peer support volunteer initiative. They trained the youth on how to identify the mental stress conditions and then how to map it. And they are going to the farmers and they are trying to identify the vulnerable people, and it is linked with the counselors. Under this project, they covered about 1,500 farm families in the 3 different states in 16 districts. So this project is now completed. This is one of the initiatives taken from the agricultural research system to address this farmers' mental health issue. Second one is the VISHRAM program, which is a private program in Vidarbha stress and health program. The focus is on to identify the mental health risk factors for suicide. They focused mainly on 2 aspects, like depression and alcohol use. And they also followed the volunteer approach, and then they did the field clinics, meetings, workshops, training programs, and which are trying to increase the awareness about the mental health, diagnosis of the vulnerable population, and linking them with the psychiatrist or psychologist, and then they try to cure them. So if you look at the impact of this VISHRAM program, which is published in one of the leading journals in the world, so the number of people who got a depression which seeking care rose from 4.3% to 27.2% in a period of 2 years. And the prevalence of depression fell from 14.6% to 11.3%. And the prevalence of suicide thoughts went down from 5.2% to 2.5% in a period of 2 years. It was like a pilot project, they did it in the state of Maharashtra. The third one is Mann Mela. Actually, this is not exactly focusing on farmers, but it is focusing on the youth. So it's a very innovative program where it is a digital museum for young people about their mental health stories. So this organization, this is an initiative of Sankart and It's Okay to Talk. There are two agencies. So what they did, whoever is suffering from the youngsters who are suffering from the mental health issues, they documented their stories and how they survived. So they documented their trauma, their self-acceptance, their recovery and growth. And it was made into a story using the art and other musical forms. And the story was given to the people who are more interested. They are also having a mobile kiosk and they are also having a website. So you can go there, you can read the stories, and that will give you confidence among the young people. So this is one of the very innovative approach taken by some of the NGOs in India to address the mental health issues, especially focusing on the youth. And there is another government project, that is a Prerna project, Farmers Mental Health Service Program. It's a government of Maharashtra program. It is initiated in 2015 across 14 suicide-prone districts in Maharashtra state. So the approach is accredited social health activists, made in ASHA, ASHA volunteers. So they are the trained, mostly they are women. They are trained to assess the depression, anxiety, and suicidal tendencies among the farmers. And they identify, they link it with the psychiatrist and again the mental counselors. And the impact in till the recent years, they at least 12.12 lakh farmers have been screened for mental health issues, and over 90,000 were provided counseling. And now in the recent times, there is a issue in this project because a large infrastructure network was created, but the appointments were made in a less number, and there is a shortage of mental counselors. And then this program is now being revamped. And another project is Atmiyata project in the Gujarat. Atmiyata means shared compassion. This is the meaning of the shared project, which is implemented in the Meshna district of Gujarat. So it is covering about 472 villages, about 0.8 million population. So what they do is they identify two kinds of volunteers. One is champions and another one is mitras. Champions are district level volunteers who are well trained in diagnosing the mental health issues in the farmers. And these mitras are intra village level workers. This is coming in the second level of volunteers. So they are going to farmers and they are creating a kind of awareness using the ICT. Like they developed an app, Atmiyata app, which is installed in the smartphones. And using the app, they can disseminate the information to the about the mental health to the farmers, as well as they are also using this app for capacity building program and also for the diagnostic of the mental health disorders. So this is one project which is implemented in the Gujarat state of India. So with this, these are all the 5 different kind of initiatives taken at different levels by public sector as well as the private sector agencies in India. And only one is directly related to the extension and advisory services scheme, which is also not directly coming there, which is a research project, the first one which I was explaining. Other than that, all these initiatives are taken by the government themselves, and they created a separate machinery, or it is implemented through the existing department, which is not exactly the agriculture department. Some of them are implemented through agriculture department, but most of them are coming under the different departments. So now when we look at the farmers' mental health, the role of extension and advisory services. So one way, from the previous experience, we can say that we have to help them in identifying the mental health status, and which is not a one-shot experience. It has to be a continuous process. Like a mental health is something which you have to document it over the period of years. Second one is once we have to go for a large scale information campaigns on managing the farmer stress, to create awareness, and as well as to make them to understand the importance of this mental health issues. And the suicide prevention hotline, which is there in many countries, and agricultural mediation services, because if you look at the problems in agriculture in India, the one bigger issue is coming like land conflicts. So if you look at the court cases also, there are a lot of cases between the boundary issues, border issues, so which we may think that which is different from our mental health issue, but this is also one of the stresses which create a problem for make the farmers vulnerable. And another one is capacity building on crisis, risk and stress management and suicide prevention, which is a very important area, competency development. And there is a need for a single window system for farmer health management, because nowadays these programs are implemented by different agencies. So there must be a system, single window system created at the district level, because in India extension work is focusing mostly on the district level. So, and then we have to go for a community-based suicide prevention program. But the most important thing at this level is we don't have a proper module for identifying the mental health issue. It's a very important aspect that we have to develop a module. And when we develop a module, we'll be identifying the people who are under the risk category. But when we try to develop a module and identify the farmer suicide risk assessment, in India, there are some challenges. So one is that there are ethical issues involved. It is not possible to directly go to farmers and then collect the data, because suicide is something which is a political issue in India. And then again, it's not possible to go to people, families. Like normally we document the problems of like mental stress and as well as the suicide using the psychological autopsy technique. So psychological autopsy techniques requires a lot of permissions required from police station and others. And there is a guideline from Indian Council of Medical Research, like we have to form an institute to review board ethical committee. In agriculture, especially in research institutions and as well as the professional extension system, we don't have any system of ethical guidelines. So it is a very essential to develop the ethical guideline if you want to look at the address the farmers' suicides. And then we have to create a proper institutional mechanism for documenting those kind of psychological states, because otherwise it will lead to the violation of the human rights. Second one is a lack of competency in mental health.
Sir, you have to wrap up.
This is also another. Yeah, this is my final slide. Yeah, thank you. So lack of attention on continuous mental health assessment, and many assessment skills which we are using it copyrighted. We need to customize them for Indian conditions, and we need to develop a standard diagnostic scale for the Indian culture. So 2 blogs were published in AESA on mental health status. And with this, thank you. I'm sorry I took some more time. Sorry.
Thank you, Dr. Paramasivan. It was very interesting for sure. There's a few questions to you before we move on to the next one. There's one question from Marisa asking if there's any data saying that farmers being in farmers producer organizations or organized in any other way have less mental stress than farmers working individually. Does it help farmers if they are organized? Do you know if there's any data on this?
So far, we don't have any research work or any published paper on farmers producer organizations, especially focusing on the mental health issue. But India is one of the largest number of registered farmers producer organizations, and there is a lot of scope for that, because it's basically we consider them as a resilience mechanism, because they played a very good role during the COVID time, and the AESA has published many blogs on the role of farmers producer organization to provide the grassroots level needs during the COVID times. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. There's a second question from Michael Kugler asking what makes it attractive for all these young people to work, or for people to work as volunteers in the many programs that you presented. So what is the reason behind people volunteering to help with this mental health issues?
Okay, So this is one aspect is they are all paid jobs. It's not, though we use them as the volunteers, they are the part of the project and they do it. And the second one is there are many NGOs which are mandated, like they are implementing the grassroots level agency programs. So they have their own volunteers who are more of a philanthropy kind of people, compassion.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. And thank you for the presentation, and please hang around for more questions in the end. I would like to invite our third presenter from South Africa, Ms. Siyani Marima. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm trying to attach my presentation. Do you see it?
No, you have to start
No,
sharing
you
your
need
screen.
to share the screen. You have a green button in the bottom where it says share screen. So you need
I'm doing that.
Okay.
But it's not attaching. I don't know.
Let's see.
Is it now visible?
Yeah, we got it now. So you just need to put it in presentation mode and then everything is fine. Thank you.
Okay.
Excellent. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I want to say thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to present on this special webinar. I don't take it lightly. I've titled my presentation Mental Health in African Perspective. And also want to say thank you for the beautiful introduction. But I want to say, as you have already indicated, that I wear so many caps, but today I chose to only take 2 of those caps because the other one will even make us to finish tomorrow. I will be talking as a healthcare professional and also as a farmer. I worked a lot as a community health nurse, and that made me realize the magnitude of the problems in the community. So the magnitude of mental health of farmers in Africa, according to the World Health Organization, 1 in 4 people in general population are affected by mental health. And 13% of the global population experience a diagnosable mental condition in their lives. And 5% of them have a burden of disease, and 19% of disability in Africa are related to mental health. According to Lancet, mental health is under research because of all the clinical trials that have been conducted throughout the world. Only 3% of them are on mental health, general, not even mental health on farmers. Mental health in Africa and in farming communities, so under research, is just a drop in an ocean. And the researchers indicate that there are more issues in farming population than in the general population. However, there are conflicting findings on this, because some say there's no difference between farmers and the general population, and some say farmers tend to experience 18% problems less than the general population. So it means we need to really verify which one is correct. Thank you. I did desktop review on this topic. And then I found that a few studies have been conducted in the continent, with Ghana being the lead, but I didn't put them in order, and Mozambique, Nigeria, Tanzania, and Uganda and South Africa. In Ghana, the focus was mainly on climate change and the livestock farming, but the findings, I will share them. The indication is that farmers are not immune to mental health. They are also affected by mental health. And the magnitude of mental health in farmers in Africa is yet to be determined, because this is an area that has not yet been so trodden. As the former presenter has already indicated, the challenges that are faced by farmers, I think that the same with what is in India. Challenges are not different from African challenges, but we have a stock theft. And as farmers, we are constrained financially because of that. And we have got market volatility. And as farmers, we also play multiple roles. And those are contributing to the stressors in the farming community. And we've got natural disasters such as floods. Mozambique is the one that is highly affected by floods. And Ghana is also mainly affected by droughts, and South Africa is mainly by fires. And some of them is that as smallhold farmers, we are faced with challenges because of the amalgamation of big farmers. So it leaves us with no markets, and that is a serious challenge that affects production in the farming community. At a glance, when people look us at farmers, they see the green part of the plant that is so bright and lovely, and they think that our health is as good as our plants look like. But internally, the farmer is crying. We are so stressed. We are anxious, we are depressed. Why are we so stressed? Because we take our farming very serious, and whatever happens in the farming business affects us. Those who are doing livestock, the health of their livestock also improves their health. If their livestock are not healthy, they are also not healthy. And we end up with depression. How do farmers react to these stressful conditions? In studies that were conducted in Ghana, it was found that most of the farmers do psychological distancing. They disassociate themselves from the problem that they are encountering, which is also not a good indication of mental health, because if you distance yourself from the problem, it does not take it away. And the more you distance yourself from it, the less productive you become. So sometimes the farmers displace their stress to the farm workers. I will give an example. In South Africa, there are farmers who are nicknamed names like Madonna. It means the one who kicks, because they are venting out from what they are going through in life. And as I was already introduced as a gender activist, I tried to look at research to indicate how women farmers are affected. I could not get any of that. But it shows that agriculture is still characterized as a men's business, yet even women are highly involved in farming. So how men react to stressful farmers, they pretend to be strong, and yet internally they are not strong. And what makes them to pretend to be strong is the stigma associated with mental illness. And in African culture, if you are a man and you just openly say, I don't feel well mentally, it's like you are not a man enough. So that's what will make them to pretend to be strong, because they want to align with what the society wants. So depression, though is there, it's said to be must. Farmers are engaging in risk-taking behaviors, sometimes overworking and sometimes over drinking. But when it comes to over drinking, there are some researches that shows that farmers are not always the heavy drinkers. There are 5% less than the general population. And one of how they react to that is withdrawal from the stressful situation. Suicide has been highlighted already as a challenge in India. But in Africa, it is not yet well researched, but there are some researches that indicated that farmers die from prematurely because of suicide, and however, there's high attempted suicide. And the most common weapon that they use is pesticides for committing suicide. What are the compounding factors for mental health in Africa? Is that the government of Africa has not given priority to mental health, although as a continent we have ratified in a number of declarations to say we will uphold the mental health of our people. That has not yet come into practice. Policies are there, but they're not well implemented. So coming back home to South Africa, 15% of South Africans have sought a mental health treatment. And in Ghana and in Ethiopia, it's estimated that less than 10% will seek medical assistance for mental health. And this is compounded by inadequate resources allocated to mental health. If I can give an example, in the community where I stay, we've got a community of 1.5 million, and we have only one psychiatrist. So you can just imagine if she has to handle all of us who are not mentally well, she will end up also joining us. For Africa as a whole, the budget per capita is only $1, 10 cents. Yeah, 10 cents. So you can imagine that I can just say that there's no funds allocated for mental health. And then annual rate of visits to mental health in Africa is 14 per 100,000 as compared to 1,051 in developed countries. So this tells us that we are not seeking assistance at the right place when we've got mental health challenges. Why do we need to promote the mental health of the farmers, or why is it a concern? Farming is a key factor in the elimination of zero hunger. We cannot, and you will agree with me that today we are all well dressed because of farmers. Today we are all seated in chairs because of farmers. So they are there to significantly contribute to the GDPs of their countries and consequently to the countries. And mental health of farmers is a predictor of productivity. The more healthier you are, the more productive you become. As already introduced as a healthcare provider, there are some good practice that I have learned from my experience as a community health nurse that can be applied to create mental health awareness in agriculture. And this includes care groups. In Africa, some 30 years back, we had the high rate of trachoma, but the care groups managed to eradicate trachoma in the continent. The care group is like one lady will be given 10 communities to take care of and to take care of their health. And if they identify anything that is not right, then they refer it to the clinic. So that's how we manage to eradicate trachoma. And we have got community health workers. These are people belonging to the community who've got at least matriculation, and they're trained to assess the health of the community. But I want to say upfront that mental health is not part of what they are checking. They rather check for high blood pressure, diabetes, and the children's growth. So that's where their focus is. And we have peer educators. For peer educators, I see it working very well in the farming business, because I think it's similar to what is happening in India, that rather than getting somebody from outside, each farm could have somebody who's trained as a peer educator to educate and also be able to identify if there's something that is going wrong in the farm, and they report. And this is also in Ghana, they have what they call the intergroup support. So I think it's a similar thing. In conclusion, I want to say that the magnitude of mental health in agriculture, more especially in Africa, is underestimated, because there have been no researches done in the continent. There are just drops there and there. And then realizing that research into African farmers' mental health is tokenistic, I will recommend that we dig deeper and do research and find out about the mental health of African farmers, because what we have is not sufficient to tell us a story about African farmers. And there's also a need to draw from the health best practices. So research could also include interventions that are appropriate to the continent. Kanimamba, shalom. Thank you.
Carl, I think you're.
Thank you very much for a very interesting presentation, Siyani. There's two comments in the chat, and I will just read them out for you. So there's one comment from Lizzie saying that there's maybe there needs to be more research, and it's a little bit based on theories, and you should, maybe there's a need to, that women in Africa speaks more together and strengthen sort of the awareness about this. And then there was a comment from David Dolly, how do you yourself manage both to be having so many hats and doing own farm business? Are you a victim of stress yourself with all these things that you do?
Okay, if I can answer that, I think the one cap that is making me not to be stressful in this is that I'm also a preacher. So I draw strength from somewhere to cope with this. So, but it is indeed a stressful situation, more especially because support is not there. You are alone. We have extension officers. They will come to you only if there's somebody who wants to visit your farm. That's only when they will come and visit you. Thank you.
You're welcome. And two things, I just two brief comments. One of them that we had both Heidi at the previous webinars and Birgit at the first one today to talk about that, you know, you say that government investment in mental health is extremely low in Africa, but many places this is linked to your insurances. But I guess that also farmers is not being very much insured in Africa. So that's, they don't even have an alternative when the government doesn't invest in it. And I think the three presentations until now really speaks to that extension needs to be better equipped. The extension officers going to farms with all this stress that we are hearing today from around the globe. We really need to find ways to better equip them in early detection and some tools in how do you deal with the stress that you meet with your clients when you go to farms. But before we go down that road, I would like to invite our last speaker of today, Dr. Tessa Barry from Tobacco, I think, correct? To present. The floor is yours, Tessa. And Tessa, if you could put the camera on while you are presenting, if you don't mind. It's nice to see who's presenting. Sorry, I didn't ask that from you, Siyani.
The host has to, good morning, good afternoon, good night, everyone. The host has to allow me to put my camera on.
That should work.
Okay, can you make your presentation in presenter's view, Tessa? Thank you.
Okay, again, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, everyone. Thank you for the introduction, Carl, and I am thankful to be here to share from agriculture and mental health from a Caribbean perspective. This presentation would speak specific to some studies that were done really within the OECS. So just this presentation, I would give a brief background and overview of the Eastern Caribbean and tell you a bit about the research that was conducted. Just to correct a little bit, Carl, I'm from the island of Grenada, also known as the Isle of Spice, but I was living and working in Trinidad and Tobago and studying for the past few years, but I'm now back on the island of Grenada. So just a brief background on the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States. That's the OECS, which is a sub-region of the Caribbean community with a total population of approximately 570,000, which is like 500,000 persons. The economies of the OECS are, member states are based primarily on a mixture of tourism and agriculture. However, key note here is that most of the islands of the Eastern Caribbean are located in what's referred to as the hurricane belt. So therefore, this means that most of them would have been experiencing the effects of climate change as it relates to natural disasters and hurricanes, etc., and sometimes long period of drought. And in recent times, we would have had some of our islands experiencing severe hurricanes as up to Category 5 hurricanes. So that should give an idea of the effects it would have had on the farming population. Most of these islands would have had a high dependency on single crop exports. So for example, in St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Dominica, they would have had high on bananas. In Grenada, for example, there's a dependency on the nutmeg, which is a popular spice, and Grenada being prior to our experiences with hurricane, we were considered as the second largest producer of the nutmeg spice in the world, second behind Indonesia. But the effects of hurricanes and so in the past decade would have pushed us right back down to approximately 7th on the market. In terms of the background, the Eastern Caribbean, agriculture is the main contributor in terms of employment, and about 24% of Grenada's population, for example, is in the labor force within the agricultural sector, and St. Vincent also in terms of average 26%. Now, these islands I'm referring to there are islands of the OECS that make up the CARICOM community. And the CARICOM community has approximately 15 member states. And the sub-region, which is the OECS, is about 7 of these islands make up the OECS. And then there are 3 associate members. The average age of the farmers on these islands are between the age of 50 to 60 years, and agriculture contributes quite a significant amount to the island's GDP, ranging from 5.4% in Grenada to 17% in Dominica. And that was for Dominica prior to Hurricane Maria, which struck the island, a Category 5 hurricane, which struck the island in September of 2017. Now, you can see that the high dependency on some of the single crop agriculture has made these islands even more vulnerable to natural disasters, aside from the fact of their location as it relates to being located under the hurricane belt. In terms of mental health in the region, a report by the World Health Organization and the Caribbean Health Institute would have suggested that mental health in the region is considered as a leading contributor to non-communicable diseases. And some of these countries would have predicted loss to the economic output because of mental health issues. Now, Jamaica, which is not part of the OECS, but part of the CARICOM, which is the wider Caribbean community, would have predicted that by 2015 to 2030, there would be about $2.76 billion in terms of losses as a result of mental health issues. Now, persons with mental health issues within the region are often stigmatized, so they face stigma and discrimination. And that is because when you look at the history of mental health in the region, stemming from way back in the colonial period when we were colonies, the mental health institutes back then were referred to as madhouses. So even today, you'd find that if someone would have been probably diagnosed with a mental health issue, you find that someone would be referring to them as having gone to the madhouse, which is a stigma for persons facing mental issues and sometimes discriminated by from members of this society. The report by the World Health Organization suggested that there is inadequate community-based treatment and inadequate care and support services as it relates to mental health issues within the region. In terms of policies, there are mental health policies, the approved mental health policies in all of the countries, including the wider CARICOM countries. However, what is being reported is that most of these are not fully implemented, and that as it results in terms of education, as it relates to mental health, most of the education issues are done with non-governmental organizations and government ministries. Most of health issues, mental health issues, are dealt with mainly from a public service perspective. So you have ministries of health, and mental health issues are guided by the various ministries of health within the various countries. Now, the report also suggested that within the Caribbean region, when you look at the amount of funds budgeted towards assisting mental health or mental health, is just about, in the wider CARICOM region, just about 3.8% from on average from government. And when you look at some of the islands, the percentage budgeted from the health budget, from the Ministry of Health budget, the percentage budgeted for mental health issues is minimal compared to some other countries. Now, as it relates to mental health issues within the agricultural sector, there is a sort of paucity of data and of research conducted in the region as it relates to mental health issues. Now, in reference to mental health and natural disasters, in Grenada, for example, Grenada is one of the few islands that has a disaster and emergency preparedness mental health plan. And it's only within the wider CARICOM countries, there's just about 35% of the countries, which is like 6 of the countries, that has such a plan, which is a mental health plan related to experiences from the farmers as it relates to disasters and the experiences that they would have had re-disasters. Now, this study was a study conducted on extension readiness to assist farmers pre and post natural disasters. Now, the study is a wide study that was conducted within the OECS region. So 5 of the 7 OECS member islands took part in that study, and the aim was to do an assessment of the farmers' needs pre and post disasters and the extension readiness to assist them. Now, this was a study that was conducted since 2015, so it's about five years ago. And what it presented, this presentation here now would highlight some of the findings, more so on the emotional aspect, the emotional support aspect findings from that study. 71 frontline extension officers took part in that study, and we did a survey of approximately 458 farmers. Now, as I indicated earlier on, our location makes us vulnerable a lot to natural disasters, and the experiences some of these countries would have had over the last decade as it relates to natural disasters. Some examples being the destruction of 100% of the crops in Dominica in 2017 when it was struck by Category 5 Hurricane Maria, and over 3,200 farmers were affected. In in St. Vincent in 2013, they would have experienced again some natural disasters with a number of landslides affecting a number of farmers and with approximately 1,115 farmers being affected. And then Grenada was struck by back-to-back hurricanes in 2004 and 2005. 2004 was Hurricane Ivan, 2005 Hurricane Emily. In 2004, Hurricane Ivan was deemed a Category 4 hurricane, and over 30,000 persons who were directly impacted by the destruction of the nutmeg sector, and the nutmeg sector being one of Grenada's leading export crop and leading revenue contributor to the island of Grenada. We had approximately 7,500 cocoa farmers affected by this hurricane. Now, in 90% of the island's nutmeg was destroyed by that hurricane. And what I want to point out here is that given the age of the farmers, the nutmeg farmers on the island of Grenada is that average, you find that it's an aged population, and most of them nutmeg being the main crop. So when 90% of the nutmeg sector was destroyed, we would have had the entire livelihood of a number of farmers being destroyed, and we're talking about the major source or the main source of income. So we saw the reduction in terms of domestic spending. We saw a reduction in terms of the number of export. We saw a drop in tourism, etc., and a loss of revenue due to this hurricane, for example, on the island of Grenada. As a matter of fact, the experience of one particular female farmer who had 13 acres of land where she cultivated mainly nutmeg and cocoa, she indicated in a BBC report that she lost everything. So everything was lost, and she spoke a lot to the mental strain it had, not being able to provide for her family and having to find other alternative to source income to support her family. So that just gives an example of some of the effects. This here just presents some pictures from across the region in terms of some of the effects from hurricanes back in the last decade or so, and the experiences that some farmers and the general public would have had the hurricanes. Now, from the findings of the research, one of the questions started to ask about the support both for physical and the emotional needs post-disaster. Now, almost 100% of the farmers interviewed and surveyed for this survey indicated that there was a high need for emotional support to help deal with the stress of losing their entire livelihood, as well as the extension staff indicated that they too, almost 100%, if not 100% of the extension staff indicated too, that they too required assistance to deal with the emotional stress, because what we have in situations such as natural disasters is that the extension officers would have lost their housing. They too would have lost even family members. And one of the things I should point out is that during the hurricane, there were a number of deaths as a direct result of the hurricane. But what was found that post the hurricane, the elderly deaths, a lot of the elderly deaths were associated with the farming population. And it was stated that some of these deaths could have been stress related, having to face the loss of entire livelihoods. So in results as it relates to the support, whether or not, the question was asked whether or not they received support for the emotional stress that they experience post-natural disasters across the region. When it comes to the physical needs, so things like assistance with labor, assistance with funding for flooding damages, for loss of crops damages, fertilizer, etc., input tools, a lot of the farmers indicated that they did receive. As a matter of fact, over half of the farmers surveyed indicated that they received assistance. But as it relates to assistance for the emotional aspect and the stress that they went through, we could see that quite the majority of farmers indicated that they did not receive any support to deal with the emotional stress that they went through post natural disasters. Really, extension staff, they too, the majority of them also indicated, like over half of them in terms of percentage, indicated that they did not receive any support as it relates to their emotional needs post the natural disasters. The farmers also indicated that the assistance coming from extension officers was slow in coming post the natural disasters, but we can, they finally suggested that a lot of these officers were dealing emotionally with having lost everything themselves. So it was sort of difficult not having received opportunities to deal with their emotional stress. It was difficult for even them to assist the farmers with the aspects of the stress that they would have gone through, the mental stress that they would have gone through after losing almost all of their livelihoods. So you can see that when asked in terms of what sort of training that they would need, the staff, the extension staff spoke a lot about needing, just right up there with all other training, and to deal with natural disasters and to better assist farmers pre and post natural disasters. We see that assistance to cope with personal stress, assistance to help their co-workers cope with stress, and assistance to help the farmers cope with stress was right up there in terms of having a great need for this sort of assistance coming from the extension staff. Now, the few who would have indicated that they got some sort of assistance to deal with their emotional needs expressed that the source of this emotional support came mainly from the church group. So we saw the need for church groups, and some of them receiving from their family members. Both staff and farmers indicated that their family support was really, really important there, and that non-governmental organizations and the support from close friends assisted a lot in helping them. However, they indicated that in terms of some concerted effort to deal directly with within the agricultural sector. Now, post the disasters, there is evidence that counseling and so was offered by the different institutions and organizations, but none was specifically directed to the agricultural sector and directed to the type of experiences that farmers would have had. So whilst there was some efforts to assist on a general basis, we see that the support specifically directed to farmers were not there. So what are some of the conclusions that came out was that both the farmers and the extension staff expressed a great need for emotional support in cases of external shocks like hurricanes. And I must point out the fact that now we're currently conducting a research on the effects of the pandemic on farmers and other persons, and stress seemed to be one of the factors that is coming out quite significantly in terms of the experiences of spoilage and so that some of the farmers would have had when there were lockdown, the closure of the tourism industry, like the closure of the borders and closure of trade amongst the islands or within the islands of the region. Some of the farmers would have experienced loss before, it picked up when agriculture was deemed essential, and it picked up after. But in the initial onset, there was reports of a number of losses. So what we're seeing that coming out of some of the preliminary findings is that really pandemic, that there is issues associated with stress. And what is coming out also is that there aren't much efforts directed specifically to assisting farmers or to assisting them with dealing with that from from a perspective of or within the agricultural sector. Both the staff, the extension staff, and the farmers indicated that there was not much emphasis on helping them deal with the emotional aspect. So there was not support, emphasis on emotional support. And the staff expressed a great need for assistance to cope with emotional stress and to help their clients cope with emotional stress. And to conclude, among the need for professional development, training staff express a need for the need for training in how to guide and direct the farmers to cope with the disasters. So what they indicated was not necessarily they themselves helping them because they're not specifically trained to deal with, extension staff are not trained to deal with mental health issues. But what they were requesting is that they are guided as to provide the necessary direction as to where these farmers can source the assistance as it relates to dealing with their emotional health. One of the things that came up because of the stigma associated with dealing with stress, sometimes it's not necessarily that they are, they've gone probably far into mental disorders and mental issues, but just the fact that you assist, because the loan, when we look at most of the islands, the loan facilities are probably mental health hospitals where they go to get assistance. And so having to access it through this, we find that many of them do not want to because of the stigma associated with the mental health institutions in reference to them as madhouses. Now, some of the recommendations was given the paucity of research and the paucity of data on mental health within the agricultural sector, that there is need for extensive research for mental health and agriculture within the region. Support system for both farmers and extension staff in dealing with emotional stress. And remember, this study is specific to natural disasters because it was conducted in terms of the experiences as it relates to the effects of natural disasters. There is need for to implement a guide on the emotional stress resources available to staff as well as to farmers. So how can they source it? What are the, so if there is a guide showing exactly the institutions, the areas they can seek support from, even the institutions like the churches and so who offer this support, these can be probably selected and gathered in one particular document so that persons would be able to have a clear idea as to exactly where they can source assistance. Now, whilst most of these islands have policies and plans associated with general mental health issues or mental health, there is need for policies associated with mental health and agriculture. So there is we recommended that there should be some sort of efforts to either review some of these policies, not just review, but also implement some of these policies. A lot of these policies are there, but not necessarily implemented. Now, the research was done by Professor Wayne Gampert from the University of the West Indies and CAEPNet, which is the Caribbean Agriculture Extension Providers Network, myself, and we had support from Dr. Amy Harder from the University of Florida in conducting this research. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Tessa, and thank you for bringing the issue up of the disaster-related stress, which of course aggravate the problems that the other presenters have told with 100% of farmers' livelihood being destroyed overnight. So there's a question here from Michelle Krügler, says, to which source of support you give a preference and why? Churches, NGOs? So where should people go for finding counseling and support with mental health issues? What would be your recommendation?
I would suggest, I mean, from a non-expert perspective, I would suggest that they go where they're most comfortable, because what we found is that some persons, they were more comfortable going to the churches because either they were members of these churches or they were from the community where these churches existed. And then there are some persons who preferred going to the communities because they go into the NGOs, sorry, because they were more comfortable with the work and they would have been part of these NGOs and they would have gained assistance from the work done by these NGOs in the past. So they were quite familiar. So I would suggest that given mental health issues and so on, how it is that these farmers choose these areas that are most comfortable to them. But I would also like to recommend that given that within the islands that mental health is probably most often the purview of the state, that there should be some concerted effort by the state to provide the assistance as it relates to mental health and agriculture that would not be stigmatized too much. One of the recommendations by the report that was conducted by the World Health Organization and CAFA is that there should be a concerted effort, and it has already started in terms of education to the wider population as it relates to the stigmatizing of mental health issues within the region, so that persons would feel a little bit more comfortable accessing assistance to deal with mental health issues.
Thank you very much for that comment. And I would like to invite all the presenters to come in now for a more general discussion the last 15 minutes. There's a comment from Rashid saying that all of you, all presenters, including you, was the need for development, professional development within this area for extension staff. And I would agree with that. How could, so let me phrase a general question to the presenters. How can extension help with destigmatizing the issues of mental health? Are extension aggravating the problem, or are they part of the solution to the problem? What can be done from an extension point of view to destigmatize? And yeah, so if anybody have a reflection on that, just take the floor if you have something to say.
Well, from my point of view, I think it's useful to talk about it and to make a campaign. For example, our Facebook campaign is probably is helping people to confront with that topic, and hopeful something will change.
So from my experience, like extension and advisory services, like they have a wider reach when compared to the other kind of agencies to the farmers, both in terms of the extension intensity as well as the reach. Because in India, if you look at India in the district level, we have a Krishi Vigyan Kendras, and as well as we have several agriculture, horticulture, and soil conservation, and agriculture engineering, and many other departments who are working at the grassroots level. So the point is now the challenge is, like I said in my presentation, the first criteria is to document the mental status. Like we need to have a system, we need to have a module, we need to have ethical guidelines, we need to have a system where in a very simplified way, like a guidebook, we need to have a guidebook because the professionals in India, the mostly undergraduates, if you look at the number, they are not the professionally trained extension professional people. Like they are from general agriculture who are working at the grassroots level, and they attended hardly 1 or 2 courses in extension. So there is a need for developing the capacities of the farmers, extension workers, to diagnose the problem. We need to provide them a manual in a very simple way, and we have to create a support system at the Krishi Vigyan Kendra level or at the professional different departments level to ethically diagnose the things and in such a way that that will not create the human right violation. So this is what I feel like it's a first priority, first things to be done. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to support that, because what we find is that extension officers are usually the first responders in terms of dealing directly with the farmers. So they are the ones who usually encounter the farmers first. So the fact that that's the case, there is need for the capacity of the extension officers to be developed. So I think that they play a direct role in assisting, if not in terms of providing the support, but being able to guide them as to where the support can be directed, and being able to detect probably what type of support might most likely be needed, because they have different levels. When we look at these different levels of support, some persons may need support probably on a more major basis than others, depending on what the issues are. So the extension officer should have that sort of capacity to probably be able to guide us to where exactly should they source this particular type of support and the support that might most likely be needed.
So if I may come in, every extension officer should in their mobile phone have a series of telephone numbers, like the services that they have in Austria, if there are similar services in the countries, or to religious centers or NGOs or anybody, because very often I think extension officers, first of all, they are not good at detecting mental health issues. And if they detect them, they don't know what to do about it. I mean, it's not their capacity. So a minimum standard could be that an extension officer had a series of numbers of, they could say, we can see you're in a distress. You could contact this and this and this number to seek help, right? I mean, that is a very small, very low order to have that sort of institutionalized within the different extension services. So having heard from different regions in the world, are there some, what is your reflections as presenters? Do you feel that everything you have said have been echoed by the other regions, or is this issue of mental health very regional, or is it a global issue?
I think it's global, having listened to all the presenters.
Yeah, it is a global issue, but it differs in awareness. Some countries are more aware of mental health and some not. Level of awareness is quite different. And maybe if I can comment to the issue of extension officers, just to create awareness what the signs of mental illness are, so that they can be able to detect, because you cannot detect what you don't know.
Yes, so like coming out with a poster on diseases in cacao, you come out with a poster of signs of mental stress of your fellow human beings, right? So I mean, I think there are some low-hanging fruits that can be ripe very easily, which doesn't mean long training or sort of a post-education in being a psychiatrist or something like that. It's just, you know, ability to detect, as you say, and some tools on how to pass this token on to some more professional people than themselves. I think those two would be my first two priorities. Thank you very much. Let me see. That is still soft copies of presentations. Any burning questions from the audience? We still have a little bit more than 5 minutes left. Yeah, there's a comment from Hyderabad that farmers are not high on the agenda of governments. I think that is actually true also globally. Farmers are not the most dominant voice, and not the ones that get you a seat in parliament. So I think don't look when finding solution, don't look to others, look within ourselves. What can we do as professionals, as farmers, as supporters, farmer service providers? Find simple, low-cost solutions. I think that would be just waiting for somebody else to come and solve the problems. Normally never really happens. You can get frustrated, but it doesn't change things. That is my experience so far. Any other reflections from panelists before we close this session?
Probably just to say that I welcome this discussion, and I think GFRAS is in a position to, guide some sort of development with regionally amongst the various regions to probably direct the discussion towards mental health for mental health within the agricultural sector. I am pleased to see that in some region the efforts being made towards providing an opportunity for farmers to be able to access help as it relates to mental health. And I would welcome more of that within the Caribbean region.
Thank you, Tessa. But I think it was a bit striking that even in a wealthy country like Austria, it's not the government, it's not the farmers, it's a project funded by some people with a passion for it. Has to go and look for money for this to be addressed. So not even in the wealthier part of the world is this taken care of, either by the farmers themselves, by the farmers organization, or by government. So it's under the radar everywhere in the world. Thank you. Any other comments?
I see a question in the chat there that is asking about mental. Maybe Siyani can speak to that first, and then we can take on. So.
Thank you. I also wanted to respond to it. Not necessarily is that women show passion for caring than men, but men who also have passion, they do it to their best ability. So it's not about gender, it's about the passion of what you do.
Thank you, Siyani. But I think you also had a very important point that, there's a perception in many cultures that it is anti-masculine to show that you have, that you cannot cope with things. It's okay to have broken a leg because everybody can see that, but to have broken your soul, you don't want to say that to anybody, or broken your spirit, right? So I think that's very important, that women tends to be better at speaking with each other and, speak out about issues than men. And that's why you see the higher mortality rate or suicide rate with men, because they keep it to themselves to the degree that they can't cope with it anymore. Maybe they don't even tell their closest family, and they just suddenly shows up dead, which is a very unfortunate thing. Okay, I would like to end this webinar by thanking the 4 panelists for very interesting presentations. And I can see I should give the word to Ingrid, maybe presenting next week's webinar. Is that what you want, Ingrid?
Exactly, you read my mind.
Okay, please, Ingrid.
So I would just like again to thank everyone, all of the panelists and everyone who attended, and remind you that next Friday we will have the 4th and final so far webinar of this series. We invite all of you, those who are registered will get the invitation again. It will be focused on the European perspective, because so many of the European organizations also contacted us wanting to present some of these existing projects. So although it will be more focused in Europe, we think that there can be many important initiatives that can also promote cross-learning, in all other regions of the world. We will distribute that material. I think Zanna, who was here from the BAG services, she also promoted it, Dr. John McNamara. We will have a number of presenters, and this, you will get the flyer and the invitation to join. Also, this webinar has been recorded. It will be uploaded to the GFRAS website and also the GFRAS YouTube channel. So you can also go back to it and see what sort of resources, because people shared lots of different resources, so you can always access that. And we will put the presentations also on the GFRAS website.
Yeah, and I can say that the two first webinars have been downloaded around 2,000 times each. So people are actually going in there and watching it, which is very encouraging. Also, thank you very much to all the participants before you leave for listening in for this 2 hours. And I wish you all a safe and good weekend. Thank you very much and goodbye.
Thank you for inviting us. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.